All right, we're recording. Um, Em, do we want to talk to Danilo about the collaborative fight we had last night?
Okay, but wait. Before everything, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Whining About Our Trolls. Yay! So this week,
We were
cheers.
trolled. Cheers.
For the first time, which was kind of expected, and we decided that the best way for us to do to deal with it was just to have a glass of wine and whine about our trolls.
Yeah.
So, so I think first of all, I think we should read the comments, right?
Yes. I was
So
wondering, do we all want to read it in different interpretive iterations? Like we can all like put our own acting spin on this comment. I mean, you're a director,
okay,
Danilo.
I think go ahead. Who wants to start?
I have to pull it up first.
I don't have it ready. So Danilo, if you have it ready, you can read it.
I have it. So it was on episode 3 of New Parables, and it was by Editor X. One of you asked on Facebook if this parables videos are funny, and no one's telling you that they are really not. And is that surprising? It's rarely easy to get honest feedback from friends when something is this rough, and half the people you know are probably hoping your collective will pay them to create art. You are the gatekeepers now, and it doesn't pay to offend the gatekeepers. The jokes are telegraphed and they aren't funny regardless. It's all warmed over 10-year-old takes on the subject matter, and mostly seems to be missing its own point. There's nothing new or even current in these, and the timing is terrible. I recut episodes 2 and 3 to make the timing better, but it doesn't fix the content. Comedy writing is a skill. That's some honest feedback.
Emily, you want to give a dramatic interpretation?
I still don't have it. I still don't have it pulled up. And I'm not sure I can do
I
it.
think if we do that, we won't have time to put the whole thing on our final video.
Okay, cool.
So
What did
maybe
I
we
say? I thought you did a brilliant job.
I think let's do I want to ask one thing. And I can go from Emily because she was going to go first. What did you feel when you read it? And what did you want to do? What was your first impulse?
For me.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a very self-conscious person, right? And so I was already, I'm already like, oh yeah, no, I kind of felt like the comedy wasn't really working either, and like we're kind of going a different direction with it anyway, which we are. Like I think that part of for me, it's like we had been talking about how some of the comedy, particularly as it relates to what we want to do with the libretto, is like is off a little bit like tonally from where we want to go. I also that there's always that side, the like self-conscious, like they're right, like I can't write comedy. But there's the I don't know, I mean, like honestly, like I feel like writers are often this way, right? We're very sensitive people.
Mm-hmm.
But um I'm also usually my own harshest critic, so like that is nothing compared to like what I would normally tell myself anyway about these sorts of things. Like I have a very hard time watching the videos after I do them. And I always have a hard time watching anything that I've ever made, because I only see the imperfections in it. I did think it was interesting, and Danilo, you might have been the one that pointed this out, that the editor took the time, this we're calling him a troll. I'm assuming of him. Took the time to,
It might not be a him. Let's just be fair.
right? Um, the editor took the time to recut the episode, which sort of makes me think like I don't know. That's like that's a lot of commitment to something that you don't like, and I guess I was just very curious about the motivation underneath that.
Yeah, what I understood, I don't know, like recut the episodes might be like, a wow, that's a lot of commitment. I think it was just like I would recut or I'd recut more in like a typo.
I don't know. That's not how I read it.
So okay, I just want to say, like, when I read it, like my first impulse was like get hardcore protective. I was like Emily is like a very skilled writer person that I don't know. And then it was just like, and then I started getting like I was like at the gym reading it, and I started getting protective of everyone. And then it was like, oh my god, I just like, I love Zoe. Zoe's great. I just hope that Zoe doesn't see this, because then I'm like, I just don't want her to think that like she's not great. And we've been like wanting to also like put her in the like the official production in the future. And then we're just like, I was like, oh my god, no, like we're not paying her enough. And like, oh my god. And then like I started feeling like very protective. And then immediately I was like, oh my god, I should have done a better job directing it. And but we were like, we discussed that this would be just like sketches of things just to try things out. And then I was like, no, but of course, like we're putting in the world. And then how I like my brain proceeded was like, so let's investigate who this person is. And then I started analyzing. It's like, oh, editor X. So, oh, that person needed to create a new YouTube account. And they watched all the videos, including a video that like, I think Emily says that like, this was like, oh, so that person is really following us. Oh, so that person knows us. Oh, that, and then I started like creating all like this fantasies on my mind just to protect myself, I think, and protect everyone in a way. And then I was like, I don't, and then the next step was just like, I truly hate a lot of things too. And it's fine, right? Like we watch a lot of it. Like I watch a lot of things that I hate. I don't give that feedback because it's like I hate it, like fuck that, like that's it. Like the person is just doing their thing and being happy and making money, and like I'm here struggling. So like who's laughing? So uh so yeah, so like for me, and it was like kind of like difficult for me because also like on my current jobs I do review scripts, and for some of the reviews I do send like feedback, and that's like a very complicated thing because you have to give a feedback that's constructive and that the person will actually hear, and you will not just like actually make the person angry or feel disrespected. So this is kind of like when I know that my name is going with the feedback. And then the feedback, and then there's like for this one festival that I'm reading is like give the feedback. That feedback is not going to go to the playwright. And then I'm really like, okay, this play is not ready for the festival. Like the writing is very like immature, and the person is like, it's really clear that they need to develop this and this and that. And then this goes to the playwright, and I'm like, oh, hello, I really love your writing, and these are like strong points, but this and this and this, I think needs a little bit of work on, which then is like highly patronizing, right? And then I was like, why am I not just saying the same thing? But I was like, but if I say the same thing, it's actually just mean. So that's where I'm at. Francis, what do you think?
Well, immediately, Emily and I had already been talking about going in a pretty radically different direction. And so like, to me, it just affirmed that we were actually going in the right direction. And I was sort of shocked to feel that actually this person is probably someone in our lives. And then I was like, okay, but it's not someone who knows that we like very much appreciate collaboration and feedback, direct collaboration, direct feedback. And so like, who is this person that's not coming to us directly? Like, why do they have to hide behind this like this editor name? And you know, why don't they just want to like send us a direct message and be like, I want to give you some feedback on your work like everyone else does? And so I felt that whole thing was very interesting. I was like, well, maybe they don't feel like they know us well enough. Like maybe they revere us. Maybe they think that we're like, you know, like we're supposed to be better than like what we are. But like that's the thing that people don't know about art, is that art is like total shit until it's not, right?
Yeah, and then like we're now gatekeepers, which is like, are people looking at us like gatekeepers? I'm like, am I a gate? It's like, what? What? And it's like, and then it's like, oh, am I a gatekeeper? But like, I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but like, it's kind of, it's very interesting, like all the emotions that you go through.
Yeah.
Something anonymous. I think if it's just, because if it was someone just saying like, you're a gatekeeper, I'd be like, really? And then the person was like, I guess you're not. I'm like, and then, you know, so it's And then it's interesting that the person wants it to be anonymous. So like that's the thing. If the person wants it to be anonymous, why would how can we engage? And that's how we got to this, what we're doing now.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I fully believe that like my mantra in life is that honesty without tact is cruelty. I think that this was a little bit cruel because I think that it didn't give us any room to like engage in dialogue. It sort of shut down the conversation. But the feedback itself was super good and super interesting and something that we would love to engage with. So, I mean, like, Danilo, I mean, I just wanted to point out that you actually stopped me from engaging with the troll. Like, I wanted to like get in there and like, I don't know, direct message with them, but you said don't do that. So can you like go into like why you didn't want me to do that?
Yeah, actually, the reason why is like such a like a very like out of this realm thing is just because I am like a gay kid that was born in the 90s. Therefore, I love girl bands. And I've been following Little Mix for like a long time. So, and then just I don't know, this month, one of the members of Little Mix just quit Little Mix because of mental health issues. And then I was like, don't do that. I was like, I love them, you know, like I just listened to them at the gym also. And then I started like just Googling, it was like, what happened? And then I started, and I was absolutely not aware of what happened to her. That like they were a group that won a UK X Factor, I think 10 years ago or something. And she has been cyberbullied since day one. And she says that like from the day that like Little Mix won, that was supposed to be the like happiest day of my life, my dream come true. It was the worst day of my life, and it only got worse. And then people would say like she's ugly and she's fat and she's and then she was like she entered like this unhealthy like eating pattern just to like she was like I was not worried about me performing, I just was worried about people saying that like I was skinny and looking great. And then they didn't because it was not connected to reality, it's just connected to being mean and jackasses to those to her. And then that like and then she thought that that's what people like trolls were going to say, and they said like no, she's still ugly and she's still fat. And then it drove her in like a very harmful self-destructive path until making her like quit Little Mix because of that, which for me is just like that's so interesting because for trolls the time and energy that they input is like I hate you, you're fat, you're ugly, lasts for like 3 seconds, right? And then for some people on the receiving end it just ruins a day. And I'm just like this is so interesting because like you only have control of how much how do you engage and react,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that the person that actually wanted to hurt you because they do think you're ugly or fat, or because or because they're jealous, or because they wanted to be you, or they think they're more deserving to being Little Mix than you or whatever, and they actually want to hurt you because they think you're not deserving, um, that doesn't affect their lives. That output of negative energy is just like a discharge, and then the person on the receiving end just like has to just like know what to do with that negative energy. And that's what I kind of said to you, Francis, was like if you engage with it was just like gonna ruin your day trying to engage in a conversation that is like person to person. And the troll like just depersonalize themselves. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not a person in this comment. In this comment, I'm editor X.
Yeah.
So I'm not interested in connecting you with my whole being. I'm interested in connecting to you through this interface.
Right.
So that interface is an interface that is it lacks humanity in a way, meaning
Mm-hmm.
like they're not interested in your humanity, and also they don't want to bring their humanity, their full humanity to the conversation
Yeah.
for whichever reason. So like that's the thing. I would say like if we engage, it's just going to be more hurtful.
Right. Well, and I I take a slightly different approach a lot of times because I think a lot of the trauma that I count as still like deeply affecting to me happened when something of mine went viral, and then I got a lot of anonymous hate, and that happened around Stinny. And like that I'm still working through that, you know, and I think a lot of people who were in that initial production are still working through some of that trauma of like being called out in a way that didn't allow for any kind of organic response. the reason that I tend to respond in the moment is because I'm very inspired by people like Rain Dove, who's this gender fluid model who always, or who, I mean, like they get like a lot more attention than we have gotten with this one troll, but they go and engage with their trolls and they make them interact with them in a way that makes that actually demands that the troll unpack their criticism, you know. And you know, for Rain, you know, it's a lot of people who have like deep centered, like deeply held misogyny, that like they don't love the fact that she looks very, very androgynous. And Rain makes them unpack that. They make these men unpack like why they feel this way. And I find that really interesting. But the thing that is the trauma for me, and the reason that I'm glad that we're doing this, is because the troll can never be the final word in the argument, you know? So like whether we respond on Facebook or on YouTube, or we respond through this video, it just can never be the final word is something that's deeply harmful and deeply negative. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just because always negative feedback is hard to hear for everyone. I think like all of us, as you just said, like all of us artists, we are like, we don't know if we're good or not. Like most of the times we witness our suckiness. So like we know how bad it can go. You know, we know how many shitty things we've done. And we have like a highly curated output like on our website, or things that we tell our friends, or things we choose to forget. So we have like, I know like my highly curated like best version of me as a director, and I've been there to all the worst parts of it. So when people like point out like, oh, you're bad because of that, I'm like, I know, and I know more stories than you could ever imagine of me being terrible. And doing shitty things. I've done some horrible things. I've done like, I've directed some things that was just like, someone should like slap me in the face in that moment, because that was like so horrible. I'm not gonna tell those things now, but so it is hurtful because it goes to that, it immediately like kind of like connects to that insecurity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole reason that we formed Midnight Oil Collective is because of how insecure artists are on like every level, you know? So it's like, we're not just, I mean, we're insecure because we're constantly being vulnerable and putting stuff in front of people and asking them to receive it. We're insecure because that's what we're trying to get our livelihoods from, you know, and like, and how it's received does impact like actually how we live our lives. Like all of those things are part of it. I do think though that there is something to be said for putting material out that we knew wasn't like, we weren't trying to make this like a finished product, you know, like this isn't the idea that we were doing is like, oh, we want to play and see if anything actually does land, and see where we could get feedback. And it's interesting because I'm not sure how to workshop something online. You know, like how do you do it where it's like we actually are asking you to engage, and like, you know, I'm a teacher, right? I love having sandwich comments. You can tell me like a couple things that worked, maybe a few things that, you know, a next step, and like a couple of, you know, like a final thought. I am like the master of the sandwich comment. But like, you know, even if you're not going to do a sandwich comment, just to sort of know, yeah, that resonated with some people, no, that didn't resonate with some people, for me is almost better than just sending something out to the void and like never having any idea what lands. But it's like it's hard to figure out a way to ask for feedback and to receive honest feedback, because I do think if the troll makes a good point, it is that like it is sometimes hard for people to give feedback. I think people who know us well know that they can approach us and like talk to us about it and know that we're actually being genuine when we're asking for kind of like specifics. I didn't necessarily think this was good feedback as an English teacher, because it wasn't specific. It was just like, oh no, it just didn't work, you know. And I kind of like, as kind of like, oh, you're just a bad writer, is not exactly a helpful piece of feedback, right? Whereas, like, or the jokes are 10 years old about, a company that's maybe not 10 years old. I don't know. Like those sorts of things are kind of like, okay, like that's not, you're not, they weren't engaging actually like in feedback. It wasn't like, oh, this concept is played out. Like I've never seen anybody, be like, oh, you know, is God privileged? Like, like what about God and all of this stuff when we're talking about like people stepping up and claiming privilege? Like God could probably do a lot of stuff, right? No, but like nobody, like that's actually not a concept that I've seen played out, unless I'm wrong. And the degree to which I was successful in spinning that out in an interesting way, like I don't know. But I do think the premise was kind of was kind of good.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Okay. I think we would love to hear like, okay, why it's not funny, because that's what we're actually trying to get to. But at the same time, like the one thing I'm questioning is like what in us or what in the structure that we created makes it so that people feel that they cannot give honest feedback or they will suffer any consequence of
Mhm.
like giving honest feedback. And then like, and I think there is like, and then like there are two specific phrases that are very like actually just like offensive, like to be like, or like, which is comedy writing is a skill, meaning like actually like you're skillless, right? That's actually what they mean. And like that's some honest feedback, meaning like it's kind of like,
yeah, nobody's gonna
like
tell you that because they're afraid that you're gonna hold that against them. I love that though. I mean, I'm just like, well, but skills are things that you practice, right? Like skills aren't things that you're born with. And so comedy writing is a skill. Like I know that. Like dated a stand-up comedian. I have seen like what comedians go through. Like the great comedians go in front of groups all the time and they just flop. It's terrible. And then they get better. It is like that is one of the hardest working professions, like underratedly like hard working. Like if you want to be a stand-up comedian, you like put in the hours, right? And I like haven't put in the hours on these bits. These are raw. This is like me going at 1 a.m. to like the little bitty room where I have to buy a beer to get 5 minutes and like put it in front of an audience that definitely isn't gonna laugh because they don't really care anyway. Like they're all there to just do their minutes. I mean, whatever. Like it's like that's the stage that this writing is at right now. It's not at the polished stage. But it's interesting. Like yeah. But we are. I think that YouTube is sort of this interesting universe, right? Where there are people sort of just putting very raw material out there, and very genuine material, and people are connecting to it. And there are people putting, fully produced music videos out there by professional companies, that are like the music video. You can get all of that on YouTube, and like to kind of figure out like, oh, where do these little comedy sketches fall on the scale of like, yes, we're like fully producing it to like it's just a person talking like we are right now, and just trying to like just talking and putting material out there and seeing if it connects to anybody. It's really interesting to try to figure out how to use this platform to advance an art and a project.
yeah.
And I think it has just the greatest potential to be this. I mean, we already see that it is. It's people, they share and they comment and they it's so much easier to disseminate the things that people love, along with like the crude comments and like the frustrating. Like the beauty of YouTube is it is this like great tool to like share the things that you love. But I guess there is also like the seedy underbelly of that, which is that it's also very easy to be very cruel on this platform. And I mean, why? Just why? Like,
I mean, but that's yeah. Oof, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the two takes that I have from these is one, how can we make sure that people feel welcome to actually give us negative feedback strongly to us? And this is for us inside the collective and from us outside the collective. And the other thing is like, how much of a thicker skin can we have? Because if our ambitions realize for what we're creating, we're going to have receive a lot of conflicting feedback. And how do we keep open enough to be sure that we are doing the right thing, and that we are just like changing and like destroying our unconscious bias and actually improving as humans and artists, but not being destroyed, or like allowing ourselves to like intake so much negative energy that we cannot just move forward anymore.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of like what I get.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Exactly right. Because an artist can't have a skin that's so thick that they can't create, that they shut down, you know?
Or be vulnerable, right? Or like, or keep like growing.
Yeah.
yeah. And we have to try out material one way or another. And it is always a painful process, right?
And
Yeah. Um
doesn't
it's
mean that we do like something incredible and great, and then the next thing is going to be great too. It might suck the
yeah.
very next one.
And even incredible great things, like people are not always they're not gonna resonate with everybody. And that can be for a variety of reasons. Or maybe people will just say mean things anyway, without even seeing it. Like I mean there's all sorts of uh, things that kind of happen out there. So it's true. You have to have a thick skin, but you have to be vulnerable, and it's a weird contradiction that artists.
And in some way, we know that when we are creating something worth engaging with, we are also still doing our job. You know, so even if people hate it and it causes this visceral reaction, like art is supposed to engender interesting conversations. So, for instance, this, like editor 326 or whatever your name is, like you got this conversation going, and it's a beautiful thing. So, in that way, thank you.
Yeah, I want to bring this one thing that Brené Brown said on her podcast that I listened to called Unlocking Us, that she says like the key, and I know this is a phrase that she expanded on someone else's, and I'm trying to find who is that other person, and I don't, so like I apologize for that, but it is to have a strong back, a soft front, and a wild heart.
Hmm.
Meaning you can have like the structure to keep going, a soft heart to actually be vulnerable, and a wild heart to ever believe in your intuition, your dreams, and your desires, and etc.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's where we should end this. Like, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to you,
Let's
editor.
chug the rest. Let's chug the wine.